Welcome to Christ Truth Reveal. The little book, which is the Unleavened Bible, is open. And this will be episode 44 with your hosts, Celeste and the Lion. And I am the Lion.
We hear you roar, Lion. This is Celeste, and I'm the co-host. We are going to be discussing kind of a play off of what we were discussing in episode 43, just talking about portals and life transformation during certain times of life. So, yeah, the actual topic is the halo, and whether it's affect or effect matters and why it matters. Yeah, it sounds like you were kind of vibing similarly, so I'd love to hear about that some more.
Well, it was just to talk about actually, it was Jesus versus Christ, and kind of in this same kind of thing. And I loved your explanation of where you want to go with it. Perfect. I was just kind of like trying to fill it in, kind of going off of some things that were going on, little things that I was following.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it's just that stuff of listening to like atheists that have that thing of does God exist, and then is Christianity the truth, and then ask a Christian, and things like that on Discord. I'm kind of addicted to Discord.
I've unleashed the beast upon you.
Yes. And it's just, the Christians are just so sorry, but, it's true. The word is made of non-effect through tradition, and they are proving it with every bit of it. And, the atheists actually intrigue me more. It's kind of funny. They're prepared. The only thing is whenever you have any kind of like question or something like that, they'll say it's irrelevant. They won't take anything, so it's kind of funny. But when they do get into an explanation or something like that, they're prepared. They know their stuff,
Yeah.
Got it down.
The skill of apologetics, defending their
yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
And got to be prepared, man. And this stuff here that we're talking about, I can't prove it to anybody other than if you do the meditation with me. I'll prove it right there. Very simple. All you got to do is be willing. You just got to be willing.
And I think that's one of the primary premises of what we say is don't believe us, don't just listen to us, right? Go ye not to any man to be taught, right? Seek the kingdom within. Yes. And that whole premise of, just a grain. All you need is that mustard seed, granular belief that it could be true.
Yes, exactly.
And then yes. We don't have to prove anything. Honestly, we're
amen.
We're out. We're done. We're
yeah.
Drop the
and
mic.
It's go forth.
It's a drop the mic moment right there.
Amen. Go forth. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I feel like, similarly, right, you're talking about an audience of both atheists and I guess maybe we won't call them Christians. We'll say Jesusans.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
that's
what it is.
That's something that you coined, and we're here because one of those fundamental premises again is that we want to help others to go forth. We want to have opportunities to share the gospel and make help grow the kingdom.
Yes,
and that's true of a lot of people, but they sometimes misinterpret the halo effect. And so when I get in the halo effect, the idea is I think probably the most often used Christianese emoji or emoticon is probably the angel, the halo above the smiley face or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And and it's cute, and it's It's friendly, and I'm sure people mean well. But again, if you look at it just as a symbol, right, it's about 8 inches above your head, and it's a circle,
Well,
which kind of
actually,
looks like a portal, right?
yeah, it's actually about 12 inches. It's around 12 inches, close
Hmm.
to that. Yeah, and because I was just doing it recently with somebody showing them, it was it's around 12 inches. I didn't measure, but that was where it really hit it, and
Okay.
totally provable.
Got the crystal spinning.
Yes, big
Oh, cool.
time too.
Oh.
Yes, yes,
Well, maybe
yes,
you can
and
share a little more about that, just so people can understand why we're using this analogy of, an image of a halo that's above a head as a circle of light and energy, and how it's related to what you're talking.
yes, very good. And see, that's the thing about it. Everything is an analogy. It's to protect the ignorant. It's to protect the ignorant, so people can go on happily with their life. But just real quick, and like the Christian people that I hear, that call themselves Christians, they're trying to defend the religion of give your life to Jesus, who is the Son of God, the only Son of God, and then you go to heaven. But then they're having trouble with the people asking the questions of, okay, then anything that I do after that is okay, right? Well, no, no, you can't do this stuff, and you can't, and it just it doesn't jive, and so I'll just okay. So the halo, because there is a chakra that we call it, that is the controversial thing in so-called Christianity today. And yes, it is me that calls today's Christianity Jesusins, because they believe Jesus is the only Son of God and didn't hear the part that says, believe on Jesus and the things that he did, and you'll do those things and greater, and that we're joint heirs. And have I not said that ye are gods? They don't even get that. They don't even hear that, obviously. And they don't understand. I heard one say, we don't understand the Trinity. We don't really understand what the Trinity is. Well, it says in the Bible specifically, where two are gathered in my name, there I am, or where two or three are gathered, and whatever they ask, it will be given. That's talking about the Trinity. And the Trinity is our mind, our heart, with our soul, in consciousness of the whole I, of that whole self. Otherwise, we're walking around in ego. So we have a chakra about 12 inches above the head. It might be around 10 inches. You can get a crystal pendulum, which actually the person that I did it with had never heard of it before. He went and got his own pendulum now. And when I did his third eye chakra on his forehead, that thing was like almost spinning completely at a 90-degree angle. I mean,
Wow.
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was spinning at like an 8-inch circle, because he's starting to wake up. He's starting to
Well,
get these
that's
things.
that's pretty persuading when it's kind of right.
Absolutely. And then they were saying, oh, your hand is moving. One of the people here was saying, your hand is moving. And then I said, okay, you take it. They did it on my head. And they found out that it wasn't the hand moving, it was the crystal. So anyway, that's the halo. That is the God chakra. To God, there is no time and there is no space. When God created everything, everything was done, and it's always in existence. A chakra at the top of the head, which is called the crown chakra, which crown is used in the Bible and it is a symbolic word, but it actually means the crown chakra. And then we've got the third eye chakra, when it talks about the door being closed to the virgins that didn't have the oil in their lamps. And that's the door. The door is your third eye, and that's the portal.
Don't believe us. Try it yourself.
Exactly. Try it
See
yourself.
what kind of ROI comes your way, or as we just like to call it, um, perfect provision.
Yep. And just if we all put our fingers right, kind of like in an okay sign, but pinched together above our head about 12 inches. We're all touching the same place because there is no time or space, and that's where the Big Bang came from. That's where God created all things, and then we came into existence. And then everybody's looking for a portal outside of themselves, or they're looking for Jesus to come back in the clouds to save the world because he's the only son of God. But for some reason, he had to die on the cross first and then go away for thousands of years, so he could come back in the clouds and then save everybody or whatever. But it's just, tradition has made the word of non effect. So you wanted to go touch on the portal. So that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
portal is the third eye in the Psalms where David says, I meditate night and day, or in the mornings I meditate and I look up. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about being inside himself. The kingdom is within, which is biblical. And he rolls his eyes up slightly, which triggers the third eye, which you don't have to do that necessarily. All you have to do is know that you're doing it. But you look up, that triggers the third eye. The third eye connects to the crown chakra at the top of the head. And when we're in theta consciousness, the blood of Christ, we completely connect to the God consciousness, to the God chakra, which is symbolic of Jesus coming out of the water after being baptized by John, and then God's spirit coming down on him, and it looked like the body of a dove. And God said, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. God was talking about the spirit, about that dove. And then Jesus said, believe on me and the things that I have done, and you will do these things and greater. All we have to do is have that little seed of faith. The mountain is our body. We're either stuck in unconsciousness and in storing up in the world, or we move our mountain to consciousness, believing in God and believing in that connection to God. We move the mountain with that seed of faith. And then that seed grows into a tree that our soul nests in with our conscious awareness of it. And that is the portal. That's the portal. There is not going to be a portal out here that is taking anybody off of Earth or to some other dimension to save you from this wicked place. It's the portal between your eyes, and it's written in your heart. It's sown in your heart.
yeah, I love the analogy, of just the portal is a way to greater awareness. I spent the day on the coast yesterday, and nice kind of cozy seaside village, and all the boats in the harbor, and all of them have portals, right? Portholes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just know that people, kind of have this effect of wanting to behave like Christians and, you know, do good, but sometimes there's that, doing good to be seen doing good versus doing good because it's the, you know, right next action of love.
Yep.
And yeah, I just feel like that can have a negative effect when, especially if you're one of these people on Discord that maybe is, wanting to be an apologist and defend the gospel, but right, then really can't answer some of these really basic questions.
Exactly. I mean, they do answer them. But it's just it doesn't make sense. Just
Right. They answer it
you
most likely from a concept that was taught to them, maybe by a
exactly.
preacher in a church,
Yep.
and they
Yep.
haven't done that work of just going within, seeking the kingdom within, and having the revelation of kind of a true theta consciousness blood of Christ experience where you connected everything all at once, and you sense the grandeur of the kingdom. of all that is, was, and ever will be. You can really experience that, and that's why we love telling people about this. Because if you haven't had that
Exactly.
experience, man, I mean, you're not doing anything wrong, but I'd love for you to try it and find it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't,
And
it's
that's
cool.
it.
You'll get there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing about this is that, there's no, we aren't like, well, like Christians are trying to save all their family members and friends from hell. You got to give your life to Jesus and stuff like that. There's no urgency to us. There's no anxiety. We do sit in meditation and we do feel everything all at once, and we know everyone is done that is evolving, that is going to exist in the experience of heaven. You're already there. Everybody is already there. The Bible has a bunch of stuff in it that is distractive. It leads people where, it's polarity. It's got the opposites. It's got where you can get caught up in all the physical life stuff, or you can get caught, you can see and catch yourself up, raise up the Son of Man in seeing the eternal soul message in it. And it's a very small book. That's why we call this the little book. It's very little. It gets rid of most of the Bible, most of the stuff in it, and that is bitter to the belly because the ego doesn't want to hear that, but it is sweet as honey in the mouth. I'd like to hear your take on this about the seasons, the summer to
Oh,
fall,
yeah,
and
yeah.
recreation.
So, well, yeah, it came up for me because I think a lot of people are going to be experiencing that for many school districts all across the country. Tomorrow is going to be the first day of school, and an official end of summer, right? Moving towards fall, and I just feel like worthy of a discussion because we all experience these transitions. Many of you may not have school age children or work in education or anything like that, but right, you're still aware of it. You see all the commercials for back to school stuff, and you may have the negative effect of increased traffic because school's back, whatever. But yeah, I felt like with these transitions, it's an opportunity to see how intentional God is in these seasons, and that, like you said it properly, right? Most people would have read that as recreation, but I wanted to touch upon that idea of how in summer we often get to experience recreational pursuits, right? Stuff that we've been wanting to do all year long, but now we finally have taken the time to be intentional about it, and we go out and do those fun activities, and in those actions, right, you are recreated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just feel like that's it's a great theme to touch upon because why are you being recreated? What's going to happen next that you need to be recreated for, right? And it's
And then that's also, then if you take that to your spiritual journey, to your soul, but it's not like once a year that you have winter and summer, although it can be, there's pulses, there's breathing in, there's breathing out. But when you open that light, when you open that portal, your third eye, and you connect with your crown, and then go further to the God chakra to where you become fully conscious in right use, in whole eye, it's recreation because that light, it's light. God is light and love. And it's just, it grows a new you, so to speak.
mm, beautiful.
And it's just like, I'm just looking at plants around here and stuff, and just, you cut certain ones down, and then next year when spring comes and the sun comes out, they just start growing again, and it's a brand new plant, but it's
Yeah.
from the same one, but it's recreated. So I love that. That's awesome.
All the
And then
cells
put
have been
that
completely regenerated. It's not the same cell.
exactly. Yes. It doesn't look exactly the same as it did. It looks a little different. And I know that, you know, I know myself, I know you, I know plenty people now that have been recreated by that light, by connecting with that light,
It's beautiful.
going into that spirit, realizing the everything existing all at once and we're all one.
I
But
see.
it's really that simple.
Yeah, the divine dichotomy. So good.
Yes. Yes, I love that. That divine dichotomy is that there is a truth of all one, and then there's the truth of separation, the original separation.
The only kind of sin.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's and got to make that point that that is the only thing that sin really means is separation. We don't do bad things and call it sin, and we do have consequences for everything that we do, whether it be bad or good. What goes around comes around. What goes out comes back. So there is consequences to things, but there is no judgment. It's just consequence. And the original separation is for our soul to go experience being what it isn't. So then it can evolve to become what it is. I'm not really like saying it like really, it's kind of like tough to say it for some reason tonight.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of like, it's hard to speak it and explain it now. I don't know. It's just, sorry.
I think it's really because it's intended for people to experience, not
Well,
have to be
yeah.
explained, right? We're not supposed to tell you anything.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
It's really about,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
coming to the realization that you want to have an experience of God, for God, by God.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what it's all about is, okay, does God exist? Yes, God exists. There's no argument with
Yeah.
me at all. Can
No.
I prove it? No. I mean, I can prove it to you by showing you how to meditate and taking you to meet it, but I can't prove it any other way. I can just say that I know, and tell everyone that everybody already knows everything. It's just a matter of realizing that and claiming it, believing it, and seeking.
Yeah, I think one of the things we might have hopped over in going into recreation and summer and the light, which was really perfect timing to do that, but was the other side of the coin, right? Where people might want to wear a halo to be seen as whole eye, yet they're not experiencing holiness, whole eye-ness, right? And that has um, right, that can have a negative effect on people around them. Oh, you call yourself a Christian, and look, blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
other people being in judgment, and judge not lest ye be judged. But the other side of it is the affect when you're simply operating from a place of unconditional love, and how that light is what draws people. And so
Exactly.
that's where I wanted to take the effect versus affect. Right? One comes before and one comes after, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's kind of the point there of just wanting to, and I have to come into agreement with this myself, right? I'm preaching to me, not that I'm preaching, but I feel like, right, the thing that I still do struggle with sometimes is just accepting everything that is perfect, and there is no mistakes in the economy of God, and that, right, people behave the way they do because that's the experience that's intended for them. And we can still be unconditionally loving towards that. It's going to be hard to be patient, maybe, depending on where you're at, right? How many more, you know, how much more oil do you need to have rendered for your lamp before, right? What other people do doesn't matter.
Yes.
And I feel like, that was kind of on topic for me because I still, sometimes hold expectations and I tell myself stories about the way things should be, right? Versus just staying in acceptance of what is. And so, yeah, I wanted to be reminded of, how beneficial it is to just be a witness, just to remain in that witness state.
Yep. And then back to also from last week or the last episode, when we were talking about, there's a reason why, I think we use the word battle and tough and stuff like that, in the Bible where, Jacob is kind of like, he's the father of Israel, right? He's the one that was the final one to become Israel. And then you have the tribes of Israel that came from him. But what did he have to do? He had to wrestle with God.
Mm-hmm.
He had to wrestle with God. And we forgot to use that term, last week of wrestling with God, not battling or anything. It's wrestling with these concepts, wrestling with where we're headed. And people think doing the 10 Commandments, that's going to get you something. The 10 Commandments it's in Moses coming down off the mountain after he was up with, he was meditating with God, is what that's symbolic of. He came down with the 10 Commandments written in stone. That's an analogy of when we find that same thing, when we go into meditation and we do, like I was talking about earlier, we connect with our crown chakra and open up to the God chakra through theta consciousness, through theta meditation. Alpha meditation, it gets us, it gets us there, doors open and stuff, but theta consciousness gets us to that full connection, that full where we sit in that and experience everything all at once. And everybody that's passed in this life, we know that they still exist. They exist just as we do in an eternal soul. But you have to wrestle. It's a wrestling match. You wrestle with God and you come away with a limp like Jacob did. It's so true. It's so true. We come away with a limp, but we come away with more oil in the lamp, like Celeste is saying. But it's not like one time, it can be, but it's not meant to be that way. It's to wrestle. It's to go into the wilderness like Jesus did, like Moses did. It's to float on the flood in an ark like Noah did. That's all analogy. It's talking about meditation. The ark is your heart. Just ride your heart in oneness. Climb your mountain, go to the burning bush, which is at the top of your head. Connect with God, know that God is you, allow the Christ to come on you fully in consciousness. And I mean, there's no words to really explain how it feels, is there?
No.
There isn't. We can say magnificence,
and I think that you can even say that about wrestling, that people who haven't wrestled competitively, who haven't competed really ever at a high level in anything, understand how this analogy of wrestling is really about intimacy. Wrestling is unique in it's kind of you against you, right? The opponent really doesn't matter. There's an objective, it's to get someone on their back and have them submit. And
exactly.
And that's such a great analogy for what we're talking about with kind of living in Christ consciousness. And wrestling is really an intimate thing. You you're really, again, battle's not the right word, but right, you're intimately learning about your own tolerance, your own thresholds, your thresholds of pain, your thresholds of exercise, your thresholds of nutrition and water intake. Because what people don't understand about really high level competitive wrestlers is that, right, they'll sacrifice, you know,
Food.
a drink of water because they don't want to put on another ounce because they may not weigh in and then they don't get to compete. And then everything that they've been working to has been nullified. And that's
Wow.
a really, there's such a great analogy there. And even the things about wrestling that I remember, just sparring. I never competed in wrestling, but, obviously have wrestled, learned how to wrestle, learned, moves from really excellent wrestlers. Um, but it's a very intimate sport, like with the other person too, right? Because it's so nuanced, right? When you have to assume a position on the mat and you're holding each other's, by the behind the neck, right? And you're almost,
Yeah.
almost cheek to cheek, right? Face to face, ear to ear, at least, right? That's why wrestlers have such gnarly looking ears, but right.
Yeah.
And then if you get the advantage and you're on top or the other person's on bottom, you have to kind of straddle and hold their heart almost, right? You're holding their elbow, but right, your heart's almost on top of them. I just love that analogy. For people
Yeah.
who don't understand the intimacy of self, the intimacy of the competitor, how the ebbs and flows of what your competitor is doing is really where you're taking your cues, really from nothing else. So, right, you just have to have the diligence of training to know how to use those little nuances, right?
Yeah. That really hit the spot. That was really awesome.
Yeah. And the only way to gain that intimacy with your creator is to be on the mat, to not walk
Exactly.
away from the match. You can't just, you know, DQ yourself. You got to stay in the match. You got to
Yeah.
be willing to have God touch your heart.
Yeah. And if God wants you back on the mat, man, you got to want to be there. You want to, and,
Yeah. That's one of those
like,
thank you, Christ, for knowing what's best for me moments, right?
yes.
And
And,
that's
and
the
like you
surrender.
said,
That's like you were talking about, right? That's a level of surrender that we just come into
yep.
acceptance about, which
Yep.
sounds, when people hear surrender, it's very counterintuitive again, right? The
Yep.
dichotomy of the word surrender is um, something that's very unpalatable for most people, agnostics or whoever.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah, until it's not. But
Until
yeah,
it's
so
not. Yeah.
I just wanted to go.
That's good.
I mean, like, because we just watched the Olympic wrestling, and and like you say, it's not about the other person.
Mm-mm.
It's about yourself. That the person they do everything in their power to be the best that they can be to compete. Okay, at the end of the day, if they get beat and knocked off, well, shoot, it's like, but they only got to wrestle one match and they wanted to wrestle four. And yeah, they want the gold medal or they want this or that. But really, what they want to do is, like Celeste said, it's about them being the best that they can be.
Yeah.
You know, they look at their bracket, they know that they're up against, on their bracket before they
Mm-hmm.
even get to the final. They know that the number one ranked guy is there,
Waiting for
but
you.
yet they don't run. They walk out on the mat and they give it their best. And guess what? Sometimes they win, you know, but it's not about the winning. It's about the wrestling. It's about the match. It's about being there, wrestling to go as far as you can go. You got to be the best you can be at that time, in that time, and even when they don't win the match, they're disappointed or whatever, but afterward they're okay. They go over and shake the other person's hand,
Yeah.
shake the other coach's hands, and they know they did the best they could, or they know they made a mistake and then they learn from that mistake,
Mm.
how to do it better.
Yeah, I would say wrestlers are some of the, well, it's evidenced by our friendship, right? Just there's a level of respect, mutual respect, and unconditional acceptance, and yeah, just a joy of being together that kind of gets developed by that, you know.
Yes,
God, that's
yes,
all God wants with us. That's all. That's all
yeah,
He really. That's all that is really needed to come into that right relationship.
yeah. And I know that, I've had a lot of wrestling matches with God, a lot of them. I mean, because I came from born again Christian, Southern Baptist. And it was when, I prayed that I believed in the things that Jesus did and to do those things, and believing that I was a joint heir, and believing that God, I don't believe that I am God. I believe that God is us, that God is me. But coming from that, and there being heaven and hell and only one lifetime, and that's only one chance, and then going in, getting what I asked for and being taken to wrestle with God, because that's really what happened. No, wait a minute. No, that can't be true, because that's not what the pastor said. That's not what they said that means, you know,
Mm,
and struggled with that for years, but then knowing and feeling that connection with God, and knowing, okay, well, I know that you're telling me the truth because I know you now.
mhm. Might be a good opportunity now. It look like many have joined, but just a good opportunity to remind listeners, if you're coming in on the app and you're getting prompts to support us through gifts or anything like that, that's just an effect of the platform, and the effect it can have on people is to think that we're asking for something from you. We're not. If there's anything that we would want, would be just a phone call, just someone wants to engage in the conversation. So you can ignore the requests for gifts or support. We're not about that. That's not what the reason why we do this. But we would love to engage and have conversations, and hear your own testimonies about you know how it is with you and your wrestling match with God. And I'll just mention we are on episode 44 tonight. Just celebrated our 1 year probably a month ago. And so, yeah, we encourage you to, if you want to check out the archives and hear some of our previous episodes, you can do that here on Podbean. We also have it be rebroadcast or repopulated on YouTube, where obviously there's no video, but there is closed captioning, which is a nice feature as well. So, but yeah, tonight's episode was really about the discussion of the halo and how it affects others when people want to put it on, even though maybe they're not living that way, or um, the affect of people who don't need to claim the halo effect, and just live um, purely for the experience of God, for God, and by God, and how that can have such a dramatic um, ability for people to experience perfect love.
Yeah.
Just we love encouraging that.
And man, when you experience that pure unconditional love, and then you with that, the experience of infinite patience is like a part of that. But being human, it's not easy, because we have to do the time thing. But when you experience that unconditional love, when you realize that that's what God really is, that God does not judge us, the judgment is just by us doing something, and then we have consequence of that. But we're not condemned for anything we do, because I guess I'll just kind of go over the gist of things. Um, in Revelation in the Bible, and this podcast isn't necessarily about the Bible and stuff, but it is. It's based on it. It's about interpreting it. But in Revelation, it says, "Glory be to God. God created all things, and all things are created for God's pleasure." And that means that everything is for God's pleasure. And that's why Jesus said, judge not, lest ye be judged at whatever measure that ye meet. And that's just saying, if you say something is bad or wrong or whatever, right or wrong or bad or good, or I'm good and they're bad, then you're judging yourself, and that's the consequence you'll experience. In the little book, the only thing that matters is that it says the kingdom is within you. Believe on Jesus and the things that Jesus did, and you'll do these things and greater. And greater is what when Jesus appeared to Saul on the road to Damascus, where he was in that enveloping light and his voice was like thunderings. And then it says in the Bible to repent, which means to change the way you think about it, which means to change your thought from being earthbound, storing up on earth, to heaven bound and storing up in heaven. To atone, which is to at one, the three parts of each of us, which is the Trinity, the mind, the heart, and with the soul. Where two are gathered in my name, there I am. To at one yourself in right use, where it says righteousness, people are trying to be righteous. Well, that's also relative. That's judgment of what righteous really is. But it's right use, to become whole I, not holy, whole I. That is God Almighty. Whole I, whole I, whole I is God Almighty. And so anyway, that's what this podcast is all about, is just we're talking about these things that we experience. We've been through it. We feel it. We've been through all the life experiences. And the good news is that joy exists, and it can be constant. Unconditional love exists, and that can be constant within self, no matter what the world is doing. And if paying attention to the world, it's going to be hard to get there. And infinite patience exists, and the understanding of everything exists. And we can know all of it. We already do. And the halo that is in religion actually does exist above the head. And as the title says, the effect of connecting through the halo is raising the Son of Man, is raising ourselves into joy and into patience and into that unconditional love for all, for everything.
Such a beautiful thing.
And the effect is actually being that 100% of the time.
Perfect.
And it is so possible. And that's what Jesus said, believe on me and the things that I have done, and you will do these things and greater. What did he do? Well, he got hung on a cross. He got stabbed in the side. He got thrown into a tomb. He resurrected, and he had his rapture. He raptured. Tribulation first, then rapture, into heaven. And he said to the man, come with me now, and you'll have eternal life. Let the dead bury the dead. So he told us that we don't have to die. We can ascend with him. Not die and then go to heaven, but experience heaven now. Store up there now.
Right. Versus storing up on earth.
Yep. And storing up on earth, what is that? Which you put very eloquently. The mindset that must take as much as we can while the getting is good, aka storing up on earth.
Yeah. And that was a result of a conversation I had with a person that I'm working with who seemed a bit paranoid about wanting to train me as his possible replacement, and I just wanted to remind him, it's like, dude, I'm not trying to take anything from you. I
Oh,
have
wow.
perfect provision in my life. My life, whether this happens or not, really doesn't matter.
Yes.
None of it really matters. As long as we're, doing what we're here for, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. And and with everything, I mean, I'm hearing these days is like doom and gloom, and I mean that's nothing's changed. The more things change, the more it stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
People think that their generation is the special one. It's been happening for ever since man began.
Mm-hmm.
And then people looking for Jesus to come back for over 2,000 years, but nothing's changed. And when it comes down to it, we're all still really cavemen. you know it's just the tools have changed. But we're really still that mentality. We're still carnal, we're still fight or flight, we're still at survival. Nothing's changed. Everything. What's different about now? Nothing, except that we have technology where people can talk about it now, and on a worldwide stage. It's the only thing that's changed.
I saw a great
Yes.
bumper sticker the other day that it was like, oh, I want that because it said, the virus is media,
Oh yeah. Wow.
right? Because that's
Wow.
that's the tool that has changed, right? We have, and in another example of perfect provision, um, I was reminded that I went to a training about, being able to debunk, you know, untruths, and how important that is to have a process for figuring out, what is a media manipulation, what is fake news, and what is,
Oh yeah.
what do
Yeah.
we know in terms of how to debunk these myths. Like you're saying, I love that idea of just reminding people that everything that is old is new again, or that we all think we're special, but I mean, there was disease and pestilence in the beginning.
Yes.
Well, I shouldn't say it like that, but things were perfect. But yeah.
Well, yeah, in the very beginning of God, yeah, things were perfect. Yeah. And then again, everything is perfect now, but yeah, just
It's true.
just that the existence of the beating of the olive came into existence.
Right.
And that's where the things come from. But I mean, in every aspect, I mean, if even atheists and stuff think that things are bad, that we're gonna the plant well the planet, global warming, whatever, is gonna fall apart. you know um Religion thinks that everything is going to be this. Spiritual people are saying that everything's going to get really bad. They're saying there's going to be floods, there's going to be blackouts, there's going to be whatever. Well, we lived without electricity before, so we could do it again if we want. But it's all fear. It's all fear. I mean, from everybody, it's fear, 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 fear.
Mm-hmm. Because they haven't
I'm not going to tell
experienced
you that.
they haven't experienced perfect provision. They don't know the
Yeah.
kind of provision that is possible. And we've done it in the past. Our testimonies of where that when that provision has come in our lives, and even healing. Miracles, modern day miracles of healing. So listen back to a couple of those episodes, and you can hear those testimonies, or yeah, share one of your own. People,
Exactly.
amazing
Yes.
testimonies, and they're not sure how God was involved in it, or maybe they know exactly how. So just want
Yes.
to keep encouraging that kind of positivity, because it's true. We don't lack.
No. And that is so true. I mean, yes, Celeste says that he's still has challenges with certain things, but that's because of where he is. He's in the middle of it. But at the end of the day, like he said, I'm God is in control of everything. So there's nothing that I have to do. I'm not going to try to take your job because I'm afraid for my life or whatever.
Nope.
He's just going with the flow. It's just that thing of what's next is kind of a little bit of a challenge. But when it comes down to it, there's nothing but joy and trust and faith. It's just like, well, that's not the way I would have done it today, but okay. you know, okay, because I'm not the one in control. I'm just supposed to witness this. But really, I have no fear. I don't fear any of this stuff. When people say, look out, you got to prepare, you got, fill your bathtub up with water, just in case, and because you're going to need that water. No, I'm not. If that kind of thing happens and it comes down to that kind of thing, then I'm going home, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds kind of, tough or whatever. And I know people take that tough, when I say it in person. But, I also have people that agree with me, in times. Yeah, I mean, if that's the way it comes, why do I want to be here? It doesn't
I just,
matter to
yeah,
me.
I think I would
It
say it
doesn't,
more like, right, I'm just stepping into the eternity that was already, you know,
exactly. Yes.
pre
Thank you. Yes.
predestined for me.
Yes. Yes.
And just
Yes.
following the next step. That's the next step. It's,
Yeah. And it's already done. It's already done because God is the Alpha and the Omega. God created all things for God's pleasure. It's done because there is no time or space to God. So, whatever is going to happen, and as Jesus said in the Bible, these things must come to pass. And he
Mhm.
wasn't just talking about that question of when is the end of the age. He was just saying these things must come to pass. We are here to experience these things. And then we're here to also be afraid, and to wonder and how are we going to survive?
Yeah.
Survive what? Most
What
people believe
what
in.
innovation are we going to come up that proves the point that we can do things even greater than he?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that part of it. I mean, that's one of the
yes,
things that I'm so excited about with this new season, working with young people that are innovators. Some of the students I'm working with now are just next level innovators, and they know it
yes,
and they live it out, and they do things at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old that nobody else has ever thought of. And
yes, yes.
it's amazing. It is just so heartening and so positive, and right, I mean, that's why, right, it has to come from the mouth of children.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. And, they are connected. Yeah, they are for sure
Big time.
connected.
Big time. They're not doom and gloom. They're seeing, the opportunities. They see it as opportunities.
Yeah, and they should because, they've got a whole, well, there's lifetimes ahead of people,
Mm-hmm.
or there's eternal existence, whatever way you look at it. In my belief, of course, there's people that don't believe that. But I know I've felt the eternity. I've felt my eternity. I've sat in the eternity.
Yeah.
I've sat feeling every soul in that eternity. And so this world stuff is distraction. I mean, I don't really even listen to it. I just kind of like looking for other things and I pass the stuff up and it's been my entire life, right? When we were kids, it was the nuclear, the Soviet Union
Yeah.
and
Cuban Missile Crisis.
bunkers, and people were scared to death. So it was just another experience, at that
The
time.
gas shortage. The lines
Yeah,
around the block for 25 cents a gallon.
yeah,
Yeah. Crazy.
yep. So many things, and then before that, it was other, just, and then of course the information didn't get around like it does now, but it was always something. It's everywhere. There
How
was
funny is it going to be?
war.
How funny is it going to be when world history talks about Americans storing up toilet paper?
Yeah,
That's going to
yeah.
be a crack up.
It already is.
What is wrong with those people?
My Corona. Yeah,
I
I
did.
know.
I did experience the. Yesterday we drove from down the coast, and I saw some of the fire zones from last summer. So that kind of did make an imprint on kind of the
Oh yeah,
way things
yeah,
were.
yeah.
So, but yeah, it's not doom and gloom because right, that's just like the light, right? There's a regeneration from that. Already you can see the reforestation coming as a result.
Yeah, and and that's the point of this. That's why we're doing this public. Because we've been talking, for years about this stuff now, and helping each other grow and stuff like that, and to accept and to be loving and to understand our eternity. That's why none of this really matters outside of us, because we know that we live for eternity. We just don't know all of the details of how we get to that finally, from physical to full eternity. But then realizing in that eternity that we still exist there. The person that's sitting here now talking always exists because there is no really end, or I mean beginning, and then there's really no end. And I know that's a tough concept, but that's why I put the spirituality, philosophy, and religion on the title, because it's philosophy. But when you understand that you're an eternal soul, and and I think that all the religions that believe in reincarnation, I think they rest easier, don't you? You know, knowing that life will always be, even if they think it's for physical lives all the time, or if they
Yeah.
believe in you know becoming spiritual, full spiritual.
Yeah, I feel like certainly it would be true for people who maybe lost people tragically.
Yeah, yeah, and that's also a thing that is like
In
an
our
anchor.
minds, prematurely, maybe, right?
Yeah,
Oh, why
yeah,
do the good die young?
yeah.
Kind of
Hey,
thing.
but they don't die. They
Yeah,
don't die.
nobody
They
really
still
does.
exist. Still exist.
Soul is eternal.
Yes. And that's the meaning of life, the eternal soul existing for eternity, never dying. It will never die. But I mean, and again, I have to say again, there are, I guess I'll call them souls that exist, but they're only temporary. They're only created for temporary because something's got to go full dark. And when they go full dark, they can't evolve. So they won't exist, but they never really did exist as far as conscious goes. But if you realize that you're an eternal soul, then everything is wonderful. Everything becomes wonderful.
Full of wonder.
And yes, and don't listen to us, and don't pay any attention to the pop ups on Podbean. Do not give us any gifts. We give this freely, and it's just sharing it because we experience the joy, we experience the understanding. We can help people do that, just to take away all of this collective conscious that is so fearful in every corner, in
Yeah.
every belief. Just to realize that God is you and that you live forever, and just that you can experience that in this body now.
Well, fun discussion. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
typically leave our listeners with a spoiler for next week. We kind of just go with the spirit and see where it takes us. So tune in again if you enjoyed tonight's discussion. Maybe look back at some of the prior episodes, and if you hear a topic that you want us to expound upon, happy to do so. Or call in and raise another topic. We're always happy to be fluid and go with the flow. That's how the Spirit works.
Yeah, and just for a disclaimer there, he's not saying to go look at past episodes to get clicks, likes, shares. It's not about that at all. But in the other episodes, we go through all of this stuff. Fame and all that kind of stuff and fortune, we do not. We're just doing this freely. We have no attachment to any outcome on it. But if one person goes within and looks up and realizes that vastness within themselves and touch into that magnificence and begin to be a magnifier of the one that God sent, be magnificent, then that's such a wonderful thing. That's just the greatest gift. And we don't need to know it. We do love everything and everyone truly. And that's why we are following the thing of share the good news with the world, sharing the true gospel. The little book, the Unleavened Bible, getting rid of all of that distraction of sin, of doing wrong, of doing bad. That's all distraction. It's about realizing that we are joint heirs, that God is us, knowing that people think we're crazy for even thinking that.
No, we simply want people to go forth as we have and share the good news.
Yes. Just go forth, pass it on, or, just prove it. Prove it to yourself.
Yeah. Well, beautiful, man. Thank you again for just being one of those beacons.
Yes, and thank you. Yes, thank you. Our lights shine brighter together, for sure.
I'm fondly recalling some of our wrestling matches, and not an analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Lion and tiger wrestling. Yeah, it was very competitive. Thanks for joining, and
Left
thank
a
you for the
giraffe.
title. Okay,
Okay.
good night, everyone.